Hello everyone, welcome to my video lecture on ARM programming using assembly language, part 1. Here in this section, we will go through writing assembly program. So whatever the required things for writing an assembly program, we will see all those things. The learning outcomes of this section will be the students will be able to write and execute ARM assembly programs in an IDE, integrated development environment. So the outline will go through writing assembly code, profiling and cycle counting, and instruction scheduling. Let us see how to write an assembly code over here. Here in this, we will see an example on how to write an assembly code and what are the terms that are included in any of the assembly code. Let us have an assembly code for square of a number. So it can be written as we have written up in the left side here. You can see the program is for square of a number. So here we have mentioned in the right side, we have mentioned some of the main terms which we are going to explain now. The first one is area. So in the first line, what we have written is area space in the vertical bar dot text comma code comma read only. So here each term defines some meaning. So first we will see area. So area is a directive name which specifies the section of code or data that lives in. So whatever the program we are writing, that program or code is going to be stored either into a code or into a data. So that area is going to be specified by the area directive. Then there is a vertical bar, inside which a dot text is being written, which is where we can write any alphanumerical characters. So it is a name of the program. If we are writing a name of the program, it cannot be written into no need to write into a vertical bars. If we are not mentioning any name for the program, then we should keep dot text in the vertical bars. Next, in the third place, in the first line, the third place, we have mentioned here code. Code is also a directive which denotes either the code section or data section. Here we are writing a code, so we have mentioned it as a code. So the third place denotes either a code or data. If data, the section lives in the code area or code memory. If we have specified it as a data, then the section lives in a data area. In the fourth place, we have written read only. So this is also one directive which is telling the compiler that the program is a read only program. So it is the fourth place is meant for a permission section. So it's a permission section for the code or data for modification purpose, either read only or read write or only write. Like that we can give some permissions. Next we have an export term. So this is also a directive. It is that makes a label. We have written a label main in front of export. So main is a label here. So this directive makes a label which is written available for external linking. So the label is the start of the code. Here we can see the main is being written in the before starting of the main program. So the same main label is being written in front of export term, export directive. The line indentation should be followed. As in the example we have shown, if the indentation is not maintained, or a non-indented text will be treated as a label by the compiler. So the main, loop, print string, these are labels which are non-indented. The other things are considered as either a directive or an instruction. So we should maintain the indentation, line indentation. Next we have import. Import is also a directive. Here we have imported a ARM library. We have imported main underscore main, which is a C library entry, and one more import printf. So printf is also an stdio function from C program. So we are linking our assembly program to the C program. So if suppose we use linking of .asm and .c file, these export and import directives are very much useful. So we can make it available that the ARM assembly is available in can be made available in C program, and C program is available in the ARM program. So import is also a directive that declares the label or the symbols that are used in other files like a C file. So we are linking our assembly code to a C file and importing a main function and printf function from the C program into our assembly code. Then we have a main. We have discussed that the main is a label which can be written to identify any of the address or line. Then stmfd, from after the main label we have written some of the instructions. So these stmfd, move, adr, move, all these are instructions. Then at the end we have written dcb, which is going to define the size of the data that is going to be defined. So dcb is define byte size. Then at the end we have written end directive, so which is written at the end of assembly code that ends the assembly file. In the next section we'll see about profiling and cycle counting. So any application written may have many number of subroutines inside it. Some subroutines are very critical and some subroutines are time consuming, which generates a latency and reduce the performance of the processor because of a critical and time consuming. These subroutine should be optimized and measured. Therefore, we can measure a time consumption so that we can go for decreasing those issues. Therefore, we have two tools here, profiler tool and count cycle tool. A profiler is a tool that measures a proportion of a time or a processing cycles that spent in each subroutine program. So whenever a subroutine program is being called, the processor will jump into a subroutine program, and there a profiler is going to be activated to measure how much cycles or how much time that subroutine is going to be executed. This is done by sampling program counter register at regular time intervals. So by tracing the PC or by sampling the program counter register, PC register, at a regular instant of times, we can measure a proportion of a time that is taken to execute a subroutine program. Next, count cycle tool is a cycle counter that measures the number of cycles taken by a specific subroutine. So cycles are nothing but a machine cycles. So we have one cycle counter tool which is going to activate it during execution of any subroutine program. That will count a number of cycles. So in this way, by using these tools, software tools, we can measure the performance of the subroutine program. So the ARM simulator is going to provide these tools in a debugger. So we have ADS 1.1 debugger that is going to provide these features, profiling and cycle counting features. Another approach for measuring time is a trace output of a simulator as a source of analysis. But basically, when we start PC sample profiling using timer interrupts to collect PC data points, that will slow down the system performance. So basically, these implementation may reduce the system performance. These are not by default involved into a debugger or a simulator, but that can be implemented into a simulators. Next, we will go for instruction scheduling. So why the instruction scheduling is required and what are the methods to schedule the instruction, we will see in a forward. The main thing, the ARM cores are having pipeline architecture. So the pipeline may delay the results. Issue with the pipeline is pipeline hazard or pipeline interlock. That is nothing but the pipeline may delay the results of certain instructions for several cycles. But if we need these results as a source for next operands or next instruction, that next instruction should wait for this result. And the processor will insert a stall cycles. stall or extra cycles until the result is ready for next operand. Uh, in another way, we can say that if instruction requires a result of previous instruction but that is not available, then processor stalls. So this is called as pipeline hazard or pipeline interlock. To solve this, we need to understand pipeline for scheduling instructions. Or to reduce these, we have to understand how a pipeline is going to work. So below we have, in a figure we can see that it is a 5-stage pipeline where it includes a fetching stage, decoding stage, ALU or execution stage, load store first stage, load store second stage. So total of 5 stages are there. Fetch stage is fetching the instruction from memory address located by the PC. Decode stage is the previous instruction that was fetched previously, that is PC minus 4. The execute or ALU stage, this is the stage where the instruction fetched at PC minus 8 is going to be executed. So normally this stage involves calculation, modification or data processing operations or any calculation of addresses for load and store or branch operations. The processor may spend several cycles in this stage, in the ALU stage. The LS1 in this stage, this stage is used only by load and store instruction. So if the instruction is not load and store instruction, this stage has no effect. LS2 is also meant for load and store instruction, and that too only for byte size and half word size. If the instruction is not related to byte and half word, then this stage has no effect. So basically the instructions add, subtraction, logical operations, these all instructions takes only one cycle to be executed, but the load and store and branch instructions will take a many number of cycles to be executed, and that delays the execution of the instruction. Hence the pipeline hazards or pipeline interlock occurs. So to get solved with this, we have two software methods. One is a load scheduling by preloading and load scheduling by unrolling. So let us go through examples on these problems and solutions. Here we have taken an example of character conversion, that is from uppercase character into a lowercase characters, A to Z. Here we have taken 3 programs before, that is without using the preloading and unrolling. In the first one, pipeline hazard, we can see that the SUB instruction, the second instruction, SUB instruction uses a value R2 register, that is SUB R3, R2, hash 0x41. So the subtraction instruction is going to use R2 register. But consequently, the first instruction LDRB, it is going to update the R2 register after 2 cycles. The compiler cannot do anything here because the flow of instruction is like that. So we call it as a pipeline hazard or interlock, because in the first cycle only the LDRB is not going to provide the result of R2. It is going to take some more extra cycles to produce the result into the register R2. Then only the SUB instruction is going to get the value of R2. So the SUB is having a dependency on the LDRB instruction. So this dependency is itself called as pipeline hazard. So here in pipeline hazard, it is going to consume 11 cycles per character. So to convert one character in uppercase character into a lowercase character, it is going to consume 11 cycles. In the middle, it is preloading. That is, in the middle, it's going to be a preloading, load scheduled by preloading. So here, quite modification has been done so that here it can be solved by using this preloading. That is, here in this program we have divided the loops where LDR instruction is appearing in one loop, LDR is in loop 1, and the next program, next instructions, next loop awaits until the first loop is executed. So here the second loop is not having any dependency on the first loop. Whenever the first loop is been completed, then the second loop is going to be executed. So before starting the second loop, all the values are going to be updated in the first loop. So there is no dependency on LDRB instruction. By this way, we can save at least 2 cycles for one character conversion. But when we divide in loops, the code size increases. So in the preloading, for conversion of one character, it is this program is this way is going to consume 9 cycles. We are going to save at least 2 cycles over here. When we go for unrolling, the third one on the right side, unrolling, load scheduled by unrolling, we can see that is, instead of rolling for each character, that is, instead of keeping one loop for one character, simply we are unrolling them and tag 3 characters conversion. That is, we are combining 3 character conversion in one loop at a time. So we are unrolling it. Instead of rolling is nothing but repeating. So we are changing that, repeating one character for one character conversion, we are changing it to 3 characters per rotation. So by using this method, we can save 4 cycles per character, character conversion. So we can see that how the performance is going to be increased. So this is about example. This is about the instruction scheduling. In this way, we can schedule our load instructions either by using a preloading method or unrolling method. In the next part, we'll go through another topics. Thank you.